Greetings, fellow Kerbonauts. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program. My name is Rice, and we're going into space. Come on, Bob, Gregmore, let's do this. Wait. No! And welcome to Kerbal Space Program. All right, let's do this. Bob, Gregmore, hold on tight. Get out. No! Greetings, fellow Kerbonauts. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program. My name is Rice. I am a KSP Minimalist, and this is the Minimalist Shuttle Program, Episode 2. Now, as you probably realize by now, launching these shuttles is no easy task. Gravity is constantly fighting against you, and when you add a new payload to the shuttle, you have to guesstimate the new center of mass as a result of adding that new payload. By angling the thrusters accordingly, and sadly the only way to gauge whether or not the shuttle will fly straight with the new payload is to actually launch it. And it does take quite a number of attempts in order to get it right. However, that's part of the challenge of this game, and that's what makes this series so fun. So this, if we were to go by Space Program Protocol, would be STS-2. And like any brand new piece of hardware, the first couple missions also serve as shakedown missions to push our vehicles to the limits and test to see what they're actually capable of. And like I mentioned before, this heavy shuttle has the ability to carry a maximum of 12 tons into orbit. However, we are going to see if it can carry a little bit more. And so nestled precariously within its cargo doors is a station module weighing an incredible 13 tons. Exactly 1 ton past its carrying limit. And because of this mission's unpredictability, instead of using our Core 3 astronauts, Jeb, Bob, and Bill, we are going to be using the members from our Expendable Astronaut Corps. Expendable? I meant Test Pilot Corps. I don't think Gregmore and Denkel heard me, so I think we're fine. So the added weight on the shuttle has altered our launch profile a little bit. It looks like that we're going to be coming up a little bit short before booster separation. Usually a good indicator of shuttle design or shuttle rocket design is usually the solid rocket boosters are ejected at around 10 kilometers. However, we are 2 kilometers shy of our mark. And so if that's any indication about how the rest of this launch is going to go, we may not be able to hit orbit. But fingers crossed. As you can see by the speed indicator, we're starting to lose speed. And that's fairly common, and it's really nothing to be worried about too much, as just about any shuttle launch in this game will have speed loss after you eject the solid rocket boosters. Usually, there's cause for concern if the launch profile is such that you lose way too much speed, and we're talking you dip below 150 meters per second. Now, a little bit about the space station we're going to be building. Because this is a minimalist series, we're going to keep the part count as low as possible, in addition to keeping the space station relatively light. And at the same time, true to minimalistic form, it's going to be elegant and functional. Okay, so we are approaching 14 kilometers, and we are still under 200 meters per second. That is not a good sign. What we're going to do is we're going to see if we can maintain this angle. We don't want to dip our velocity indicator below the 45-degree mark. So we're going to try to keep it as straight as possible and keep us angled as high as possible as well. Okay, so let's have a look at our orbital trajectory here. And it looks like our apoapse is at 18 meters, and we are T-minus 18 seconds to apoapse. That doesn't seem too good. Usually when you're launching a regular rocket, a good indicator of things after you pass, say, the 15-kilometer mark is your T-minus to apoapse is 30 seconds or more. However, because we are below 30 seconds to apoapse, looks like our suborbital trajectory is going to be a little bit shallow. And it's starting to look like that Gregmore and Denkel are regretting joining the Test Pilot Corps. However, don't worry your little green heads, guys. We're going to get you home safely. And by safely, I mean safe by Kerbal standards. Which means that we'll do all we can to make sure that you keep some. Did I say some? I mean most. Most of your body parts. Okay, I don't think they're buying the whole pep talk thing. So, interesting fact about the real-life NASA shuttle, when it launches from the pad, its gimbaling engines aren't at full throttle. It takes a little bit for the engines to throttle up all the way to maximum. And in that time, the directed explosions coming out of the engine bell is ununiform and fairly sputtered. And so that's why when you see the shuttle lift off and you see those camera angles where it's zoomed into the engine bells, you see them wiggling around and turning in circles and ovals. Because what it's doing is it's attempting to counteract the lack of uniform thrust coming out of those engines while they're spooling up by directing it around the craft in circles underneath it. However, that's where some of the differences in the core mechanics of this game differ from real life, in that engine sputtering really isn't much of an issue in this game. And additionally, you really don't have to wait to throttle up your vehicle when you launch it from the pad. Okay, so the good news is our Apple Apps looks healthy, and our time to Apple Apps looks pretty healthy too. Unfortunately, the bad news is we're starting to run out of fuel. For a spacecraft like this, when it's carrying cargo underneath its max capacity, it takes about 1,200 units of fuel in order to complete its circularization burn. We are fast approaching that limit, but oh boy, we'll see what happens. So let's see if we can push our Apple Apps to about 90 kilometers, and we're almost there, and almost there. Perfect. Okay, main engine cut off, and looks like we have a pretty decent amount of fuel, so we may be able to salvage this mission yet. Okay, let's go ahead and turn our vehicle, and let's prep our circularization burn. So let's get that node up, and let's see if we can do this at about 90 kilometers. So let's do this fairly carefully. We want to be able to get this orbit relatively circular. It doesn't have to be completely circular because all we're doing is really we're trying to set our course so that we eventually intercept the Kerbal National Space Station. So we're not trying to win awards really for best orbit. Okay, so it looks like we got a 59-second burn coming up. However, it's not going to be exactly 59 seconds because of the way that this vehicle is designed, and because the direction of thrust is slantwise of the center of mass, we can't fire the engines at full throttle. We can generally run the engines at about half throttle if we're going to maintain any type of semblance of stability. And so what we're going to do is we're going to time warp until we are roughly around the 59-second mark, and then let's throttle up. Okay, now we got to be very careful about this. For circularization burns with the shuttle, we need to make sure that we keep track of our pitch indicator to make sure that our torque isn't being overpowered by that engine. And also, we need to make sure that we keep track of that Apple Apps so that it doesn't get too far away from us when we're doing our burn. So we are just about done with our burn, and let's take a look here. Oh, we are past our Apple Apps. However, that's not really too much to be concerned about. As long as we are above 70 kilometers above Kerbin, and we keep our speed above 2,000 meters per second, it should be fast enough so that as long as we maintain consistent thrust, it should be enough to help us overcome the curvature of the planet. And speaking of acceleration, oh boy, it looks like we are almost out. And yep, there we go. We are out of fuel, guys. Okay, so, unfortunately, it doesn't look like our monopropellant thrusters are going to be enough to help us circularize this burn. So we're going to have to accept that this is going to be a suborbital flight. In the meantime, the mission must go on, so let's open up our solar panel and open up our cargo bay doors. We need to deliver our payload quickly before we fall back into Kerbal. And oh boy! Okay, so it looks like our module got jostled around a little bit. It's no longer connected to our shuttle. However, allow me to introduce our Transit and Assembly module, constructed from the Space Factory Industry mod. Weighing in at a hefty 13 tons and composed only of 8 parts, this transit and assembly module will help us collect the parts that are brought up into space via space shuttle and will help us assemble our space station piece by piece. Now, my favorite mods are the ones that help me maintain minimalistic integrity. More specifically, I absolutely love mods that provide me what I like to call everything capsules. Take this module for example. In just 8 pieces, this module has everything you need. All the RCS thrusters are already integrated into the capsule, so you don't have to waste part counts to add RCS thrusters onto the side. In the back end, the service module has an actual fuel engine as well as a rear RCS thruster already integrated into it. Additionally, it has RCS fuel integrated into the service module along with the fuel, so you don't have to waste parts to add in RCS fuel tanks and regular liquid and oxidizer fuel as well. Not to mention, this module has seating capacity for up to 7 Kerbals. And believe it or not, this module is actually based off of a real-life design currently under development by the Russian Federal Space Agency. Called the PPTS, or the Perspective Piloted Transport System, it's currently being developed as the next generation of partially reusable manned capsules. Eventually, the Russians hope to use it to replace the aging Soyuz capsule that's currently being used to transport supplies and people back and forth from Earth to the International Space Station. Effectively, the PPTS is the Russian equivalent of the American Orion capsule that was designed by NASA to ferry people to the moon. And curiously enough, there's a third competing design out there that's under development by the European Space Agency. They're developing what's called the CSTS, or the Crew Space Transportation System, which is designed to maintain a European presence in space and generally achieve the same things as the Russian PPTS and the American Orion capsules. And now that we got our assembler and transit module up into space and properly circularized into orbit, we've got to get our crew back down to the planet. Now, what's scary about this is not only is this a nighttime landing, but this is a dubious nighttime landing into I have no idea where. We're increasing speed by 5 times to help decrease the tedium of re-entry. But unfortunately, I've got no idea whether we're going to be landing in ocean or we're going to be landing on actual land. And what makes this even scarier is even if we're going to be landing on land, we could very well just smack into a mountain or something like that. What's curious about this shuttle is that it's not really rated for water landings. I don't think I've ever landed an aircraft onto water and had the crew survive. So, Dunkel and Gregmore, well, it was nice knowing ya. Now, it was at this point that I caught hints of land, and it looks like we were about to cross over into water. So we were just leaving the land behind us. So we turn our vehicle around and we hard turn. And turn our vehicle southward, because that's where relative maybe flat land is, I'm hoping. I know there's some sort of land down there as we turn south, although I'm not quite sure what it is. Now, the technically inclined could just turn up the gamma of the graphics of this game so that you could see at night. However, that kind of alleviates you from the challenge of the game, and believe it or not, makes the game a little less fun for me. And there's a lot to be said about flying at night, where the only thing you have to fly by are your instruments, and that ominous gloom ahead of you, where you realize you can barely see maybe 2 inches in front of you, or the subtle dances of silhouettes in the distance could be indications of safety or absolute horror of some sort of mountain as you come crashing into it. So here we are, we're slowing down speed now, and we come down like a brick onto land, flat land. Woo! Okay, so we hit our RCS thrusters in full reverse, and we feather our brakes because we have no idea whether or not there's some sort of cliff ahead of us, or if we may end up falling over some hill and smacking our vehicle. Okay, good deal, and we have landed. Perfect. Greg Moore and Dunkel, you live to see another day. Congratulations, gentlemen. Meanwhile, back in space, we return back to our assembler and transit module and prep it to dock with our current station core. Now, admittedly, right now it doesn't look like much of a space station, but that's one of the neat parts about doing a program like this, is when you start building your space station together with all sorts of neat little solar panels and whatnot, and it starts to look really cool. But for now, we have our humble beginnings. And eventually, this will also serve as our fuel hub, so we can have our lunar shuttle stop by to top off its fuel on its trip to the moon. As you can see, I'm using the Navy Fish Dock-A-Line mod to help me dock this vehicle. Now, initially I had my doubts. Docking is one of my favorite parts about this game, and there's a certain zen-like quality to playing this game and docking vehicles manually without any assistance or any mods. So you can imagine my reservations when I heard that there was a mod out there that can help make docking easier. However, I like challenges, and I don't like things that take those challenges away. For example, mech jab. Some people use mech jab, and that's great. However, I don't like the game being an autopilot for me. Kind of ruins the experience for me. At the same time, docking, I don't much care for docking mods that dock for you. But when I learned that the Navy Fish docking mod doesn't dock for you, it just provides you some additional information to help with your docking, I decided to give it a try, and lo and behold, I was addicted to it. Sometimes, though, I still dock without the Navy Fish docking mod because I still love to experience the challenge of docking without any assistance whatsoever. And it looks like we got one more part added to our space station, and so I declare STS-2 and this episode mission complete. Once again, my name is Rice, and we will see you next time.